The sun is rising, the tomb is open, and a question rings out, a question that still speaks today. Why do you look for the living among the dead? It's the question the angels asked the women who showed up at the tomb, grieving, faithful, hopeful. But it's a question for us as well, because we spend a lot of time looking for life in all the wrong places. We chase purpose in a dead-end job. We put our hope in broken political systems. We try to find meaning in unhealthy relationships. But Easter reminds us, resurrection doesn't begin with answers. It begins with showing up, which all of you did this morning, so we're off to a good start. The women at the tomb showed up. Luke tells us on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. The women didn't come expecting a miracle. They came to mourn, to honor, to anoint. They came with sorrow and spices, but they showed up. That's what faith looks like sometimes. Not a triumphant song, but a tired body doing what love requires. And because they showed up, they became the first to witness the resurrection. Resurrection also begins where people show up. The women came expecting the end. Instead, they witnessed a new beginning. The stone was rolled away, the tomb was empty, and a new story begins. That's what happens when people show up during the hardest times and the hardest places. Resurrection begins in the places where people show up. Let me tell you about someone who has shown up in my life. It's my Aunt Marie. Everybody needs an Aunt Marie. Do you have an Aunt Marie in your family? You've met my cousin Steve. His mother is Aunt Marie. With the exception of my parents, she's been here the most at St. Mary's to visit me, even more than my siblings, nieces, and nephews. She's my godmother, and she helped form me in faith. As kids, we always had sleepovers at my Aunt Marie's and Uncle Bob's, but she made us go to church no matter what. I remember that as a kid. She taught me how to be both a liberal and a faithful Christian, which I wear as a badge of honor in my adulthood. She came from a big family. They had 12 siblings. And through them, I met someone who was gay for the very first time. My Aunt Marie introduced me to a world big enough to hold all kinds of people. Aunt Marie was an amazing baker. My favorite were her peanut butter cookies with the Hershey Kiss on top, peanut butter blossoms. Anyone here know how to make those? Yeah. See me after church. Then every year, my Aunt Marie and Uncle Bob would rent a cabin at Hampton Beach. That's long before we knew about Algonquin and Provincetown. Hampton Beach, kind of little honky-tonk beach. They rented a cabin, and I was always invited to stay. And like my aunt, I loved being on the edge of the ocean, where you learn so many life lessons that we still do today. I had a freedom with my Aunt Marie that my parents didn't afford me, and that's why I enjoyed spending so much time with them. She let Stephen and me go to the movies with her younger sister, Millie. We went to see Jaws. I was 10 years old when I saw Jaws. Then my Aunt Marie let us watch the movie The Ritz. Any of you guys remember that movie from 1976? I was 12 years old when I saw that movie with my Aunt Marie. But what I loved about my aunt most was this. She always showed up. She showed up at my baptism. She showed up at my confirmation. She showed up at my ordination. She showed up at my wedding. And yes, she even showed up here in Provincetown. But right now, my Aunt Marie is in a rehabilitation center in Florida. She used to go for the winter, but she's having trouble, and she's having trouble getting home to New Hampshire. She wants to show up for her grandchildren and great-grandchildren in New Hampshire, but for now, my family needs to show up for her. Thus my shout-out in this Easter sermon, because my Aunt Marie is watching as we all gather. So if you want to find life, look for it in the people who show up in your life, not these other folks in life, and that's the Easter story. You want to know what else looks like resurrection in 2025? Is Amari here in church? Amari, can you stand up for a quick second? All right, Amari showed up this week. So Amari, we're very proud of you. Amari came to Holy Thursday. Great, you can have a seat. Amari came to Holy Thursday not because his grandmother brought him, because he wanted to be here. When it was time to wash our feet, Amari came right up, took his shoes off, and we washed his feet. And then he washed the feet of one of the clergy who was present with us. He stood in witness as 3 clergy washed the feet of Deacon Bruce. Then after that, Amari came up to the communion rail, open-hearted and ready, and he received communion for the very first time this past Holy Thursday. He understood that washing feet is about service and Eucharist is about strengthening us. And so for me, that was a moment of resurrection here in this church. We saw Christ in Amari. That's new life. So friends, when the world feels hopeless, show up anyway. Let's be honest, our country is in trouble. Politics won't save us. Leaders will disappoint us. So where should we look for life? Not among the dead, and not among the dead promises of power, not among the empty tombs of fear and division. We look for life among people who show up, in a friend who checks in at the right time, in a grandmother who brings you to church, in parishioners who show up at town hall to make their voices heard, and in an aunt who bakes cookies and drives hours to be there for you. So let me ask you this Easter morning, where in your life are you still searching among the dead? Where is God inviting you to show up, even if it's hard? And who needs you to show up to help them in their journey of faith? Because here's the truth. When the world feels hopeless, show up anyway. Because the tomb is still empty, Jesus is still alive, and resurrection is still happening every time we choose to show up with love. Alleluia, Christ is risen. The Lord is risen indeed. Alleluia.